So my role is not to get into the discussions between the local union and the superintendent and the school committee. The superintendent has complete responsibility for choosing one of the 4 models. As long as the rationale that they provide to us for why they're choosing the model that they choose makes sense, and as long as they've followed the protocol, they've engaged the community, they've held meetings, they can explain why they've selected the model they've selected, then, and I feel confident that they're ready to implement that model, then I plan on approving the model that the superintendent chooses. What was happening before the selection was made was not a negotiation. There was not a contract out on the table. It was not a contract negotiation. It was a selection of one of the models. The superintendent has complete authority to let us know which of those 4 models she thinks is going to be successful. So whether her experience sitting down with the teachers union and their conversations about it, whether they say they're supporting the transformation model or they're not, or whether they say they're willing or they're not, that part of it does not factor in. Because if there's something that the superintendent feels is a message to her that indicates that that model, the selection of that model would set them up to be unsuccessful, which is what is the case here, then I support the superintendent in choosing a different model. So the teachers union was involved. The teachers union was a part of the stakeholder meetings. The teachers union was at the public meetings. The teachers union was at the school board meetings. The teachers union was involved. She had separate meetings with the teachers union. No one is disputing any of that.
And the teachers union informed you and informed the superintendent by her deadline in writing that they would accept the transformation model.
And whether or not they accept the model is not, the superintendent has the authority and the responsibility to choose the model that she believes is going to be
But the superintendent is saying that she chose the model because the union would not agree to transformation. And so we have to be very careful that when we are thinking about it, when you are making your assessment, and it is clear where everyone is, and I just think it's important that some facts that have not gotten out onto the table, at least have not, in my estimation, and I have been, excuse me, and I,
I'll let
just
let
then I will
Colleen finish, then anyone
rephrase
wants
if we
to
want
speak.
us to be careful. A, we have not had an opportunity to talk about this prior to your decision. B,
It's not for us to talk.
well,
Excuse me.
you know what?
Well,
We
let
can get
Colleen-
into a debate
Okay,
if you'd
go-
like to,
I'll-
and that would be
anyone
fine.
who'd like to
I
speak.
would like
Listening
this
very
table,
patiently.
I would like this table to be a civil table. And so what all I am asking is, I asked the reasons, I asked whether or not you took this piece of evidence that we all received into consideration. I have my answer. And then my last response was that I believe that there is information that whether we call it a table, whether we say that it is in the vast universe of information and misinformation that is out there, I do believe that it is very important for us as a policy board to recognize the fact that when we look at the protocol, when we look at the references to collective bargaining, to inclusion, to collaboration, and that when you list for me all of the things that indicate that the union was involved, and when I hear from the superintendent, either at a meeting, in the public, in interviews, that the reason for the decision around turnaround was because the union would not agree to transformation, and we as a Board of Regents charged with overseeing education in this state have a piece of evidence that was submitted upon request of the superintendent by her deadline saying something exactly opposite, I think it behooves us to consider that.
Anyone else?
I'd like to.
I would like to say, I think that we absolutely, I mean, this is the protocol that we adopted, and we, in everything, all the evidence I have, what I understand about how this process is played out is that it's entirely consistent with the protocol that we set out and empowering the superintendent to select which of the 4 models was going to be the right model. Where our real focus needs to be is in admitting that this school has failed thousands of kids for so long. And I'm ashamed that we have let this go on for as long as it has. And for the first time, we have the courage at the local level, at the state level, at the national level, to say, this is not okay. That just because you were born in 02863, that you're going to get a lousy education, that is not acceptable. And that we will not shrink from our responsibility to step up and say, we're going to change this. We're going to have higher expectations for these kids, because these kids can and will achieve at high levels.
Collective bargaining will be a part of the process. It would have been if transformation had been selected. There would have been a proper process for addressing what would need to change in the contract. There's an ability in the contract to make an adjustment for one building. And it will be under turnaround because the staff who are asked to stay and the new employees who come will be members of the union, will be members of that collective bargaining unit. As Angus was saying, had the superintendent chosen Restart, that would not have been the case. She had the option of saying, we're not going to have collective bargaining at all. We're not going to bring back any teachers. So she chose Turnaround because she knows that there are great teachers at Central Falls. I know they are as well. I've met them. I've been in their classrooms. And I think that the choice that she's made, she has defended, and we approved it based on all the evidence that we had.
Colleen? Yes.
I am ashamed that it appears that we are putting, and the only conversation that is going on right now, and I appreciate the fact that we will get to the conversation about program, is that we are focusing solely on teachers. Those teachers should not be bearing the sole blame for what has gone on in that district. And we need to look at issues. I am not hearing yet, and I will say yet, but I am not hearing yet the issues about the data that we have that shows what those students need in terms of program. When I hear about a graduation rate that is unacceptable to all of us, I'm not hearing conversation about research-based programs that work at raising that graduation rate. I'm not hearing it yet, but what I am hearing is about the teachers in that building. What I am seeing is the result of the action of choosing the turnaround model that appears, and I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth at this table, but I think we all have to be very cognizant of the consequences that play out as a result of this action, that I am ashamed. And as a 20-plus year educator, I am, and as a policymaker that is charged with looking out for the best interests of students and the people who work for those students, that it appears that we are pointing the finger and placing the blame on teachers. And that's why I asked.
That is not the case, Colleen.
That is the way it's playing out.
I
Deborah.
realize that that's the way it's playing out, but I think it's a real serious misperception.
It is a misperception about blaming teachers for what's going on there. I agree. Thank you.
I agree, and it is absolutely an incorrect way to view this. I understand why it's being viewed that way, because most of the employees at the school are teachers, and it's affecting them significantly. So I understand why it's coming out, it's appearing and feeling that way. But it is not blaming teachers, and it's not just about the teachers. First of all, every administrator in that building also lost their role, as did any staff member whose job affects student achievement.
Anyone else like to make any comments? Anything further? All right, I'm done with the report.
Providence